Well, we are live on Yonkers Voice. Thank you guys for joining. Audience, we have John Rubbo, the chair of Housing and Real Estate, and Councilwoman Shanae Williams. The point of this interview is to give us clarification on where are we in regards to affordable housing. It's a very important subject, and it's a subject that needs to be addressed because the people of Yonkers want to know. We are seeing many houses being built in Yonkers. Things are moving forward, but at the same time, people of Yonkers are moving out because those houses, those buildings are coming up, buildings that most of us cannot afford to live in. So since John Rubbo, you are the chair, I'm going to give you a minute and a half, more or less, okay, for your opening, and then Shanae, you take it after. Is that okay?
Sure.
John,
that's great. All right, thank you. Thank you for having us on. I think this is great because it gives us an opportunity to talk about the affordable housing ordinance. Many members of the Yonkers City Council are very passionate about this. And we're trying to, I think we have lots of ideas surfacing throughout the council, and we're trying to figure out how to funnel them together and create or revise the ordinance that currently exists in a way that benefits the residents of the city of Yonkers. So I think we are having some good conversations. We've brought people to the table, to the real estate meetings, to speak to listen to. We've had some meetings with stakeholders. We're going to continue to do so. Next Tuesday evening, we scheduled a real estate meeting, and I've invited HRNA. HRNA is a firm that was hired by the city of Yonkers and the administration to come in and not study whether or not we need affordable housing, but make recommendations on how we can implement the ordinance that we're currently looking at. They've written affordable housing ordinances and, excuse me, have worked on housing for New Orleans, for Detroit, I don't know if it was Hartford or New Haven in Connecticut, but they're very, very active. And so we had the Councilwoman Williams, the majority leader, and I joined a call just last week with the administration and this group. And I thought it got kicked off really well. They have some ideas, but what they want to do is they want to come in and meet with every single stakeholder. They want to meet with the community. They want to meet with developers. They want to understand the market conditions. So the only thing that I've really been saying all along here is what I want to be able to do is when we talk to market rate developers who really, that's what this ordinance will directly affect market rate developers. So when we talk to the market rate developers, they're saying 20% is too much. I'm not sure if it's too much. I think we need to see the financial data that, because what we're doing is we're telling business people you have to build 20% or you have to build 1%, right? And so we just need to, what I think is be able to make this business case to business people and demonstrate how what we will propose and what we will ultimately pass will not negatively affect them. And it will be a positive for the community. It will be a positive for them. And I think we're talking about so many different ideas and thoughts, of which I'm sure we'll go into a little bit. But ultimately, I want to see us revise our affordable housing ordinance. There are some things that I would like to see, which we can talk about in a little while. But I think this is a really good opportunity for us to do something great for the city of Yonkers and potentially create an ordinance that could be looked at as a model elsewhere around the county or even the country. So.
Shanae, please.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hello, Yonkers. And thank you, Rue, for inviting us again to come back to talk more about this affordable housing because it is an important issue. It's important to me personally. It's something that I ran on. It's something that I want to see happen in real life, like this year, like ASAP, right? It's something I wanted to happen last year. So I'm really passionate about getting this done. That's why I introduced it. And that's why we've been, pushing and fighting to really get in the community to put their input because it has to be about the community. The reason why we're fighting for 20%, at least why I'm fighting for 20% affordable housing is for the people of Yonkers so that they don't have to get priced out when we do build luxury buildings, which, you know, is what is being proposed. And we want those, we want to welcome new people, we want to be friendly to developers. But my concern and my main thing is really about the Yonkers residents and making sure that they are benefiting from all of the growth. And with the ordinance, you know, it's more than just the 20%, and that you know, that's why it's so challenging, and that's why we haven't been able to get it passed as yet. It's because there are a lot of specific details that goes into this ordinance to figure out, you know, the area median income, to figure out what percentage, what breakdown within each bracket of AMI to allocate for X amount of housing, right? It's really complicated, and it's really like you heard, there's not a lot of research about it. I mean, we did have a couple of studies, housing studies, one by Westchester County and one by another firm, which we have shared and talked about. And it's important because people are housing insecure. You know, that's the bottom line. People are struggling, especially now. We can see it more so because of the pandemic, but people are struggling. It's not going to get better after, you know, COVID goes away. It's going to get worse, in my opinion. And so we have to make sure that we put everything in line now and do it right so that we can help the people who's going to need the help and people who need the help now. And that's, you know, really where I'm coming from with all of this, is making sure that we can build up our city, that we can bring new people in, but that we can also make sure that the people who live here, who have been here their entire lives, people who are poor people, people who just don't have the funds or to be able to afford really expensive rents, can actually stay here, not get priced out through, you know, whether it's, you know, not get priced out in a sense that we know that when builders come in and build expensive housing and the neighboring landlords around see how much they're charging for rent, they take that as an opportunity to say, okay, well, if that's the market, we're going to increase our rents. And that's going to severely hurt the people that's here, that just don't have it. And that's what we're concerned about. So how do we combat that? There's a lot of things that we have to do. This ordinance is just a small piece of that. You know, I'm focusing on other things as well as this ordinance, but I'm looking at and having conversations with developers who want to build affordable housing that we can buy, that we can sell to residents, and have residents really invest in the city of Yonkers, and so that they can actually have a stake here and stay here, right? We're having conversations, we've had conversations with folks who felt like the current ordinance just doesn't have anything in there to help them build 100% affordable housing. So we're looking at how to address that. In fact, I introduced the revised version of the affordable housing proposal that includes, you know, benefits for builders who want to do 100% affordable housing. And that's important to really highlight. So this is not just about the 20% increase, but it's about a lot of other things. And so it's going to take some time, but time is of the essence. And you know, we don't need to keep having the same conversations over and over. We have to actually figure out how to get this done. And for the first time, I'm going to say it live, I agree with Councilman Rubbo that we have to make sure it's done right. And that's why it's taking so long, but we're going to get there. And I'm confident that, you know, if we can all, you know, put our brains together and really iron out the kinks of this ordinance, we'll get it done.
No, thank you, Shanae. Shanae, let me make it clear that you have a personal attachment to this because you live on this district. This is people that are affected, your constituents that are affected. But on the other hand, John, you are not. You are a tenant in one of those buildings that the investors own. So people can understand the context, because some people are saying, well, maybe the councilman, John Rubbo, has double interest here. And we need to clear up the misconception and tell people exactly what it is. But you guys know that we are live and people are asking questions. And the first question or the first statement comes from Hector Santiago, Hector the Connector, creator of Stop and Shake. I'm glad his phone is working today. We are either too poor or too rich for all those new apartments. And it's literally a few dollars that is changing the narrative. What do you think about that statement, John?
And it's a few dollars to change the, say that one more time, Ben?
Hector Santiago says, we are either too poor or too rich for all those new apartments. And it's literally a few dollars that is changing the narrative.
So if he means by it's a few dollars changing the narrative for the builders, the IDA did a study over the summer, which took the Rose Construction Project, which is where it's being built on Alexander Street, where Altman Lighting was. And they applied the proposed ordinance. And when they applied the proposed ordinance versus the existing ordinance, what it did was it decreased the profit that this particular developer, Rose Construction, would have made below 10%. And it would not necessarily have made that project profitable unless the city of Yonkers decided to give them a richer IDA tax credit or more benefits for them to build there to offset their balance sheet. And so in that particular case, it just didn't make sense. Now, there's so many different ways to look at this, because if you're a builder, you may be building something that's 5 stories that has 40 or 50 units, and it's stick frame. And so what that means is they're building wood, and it's going to be cheaper to build. Where if they're going much higher, then they're going to be building with steel. If they're building with steel, it's going to be more expensive to build, but they gain more stories. So there is, and we started talking about this topic a little bit a few weeks ago, the last time you and I met, Ben. And there is so much to consider when discussing this topic. Everything from AMI, right? So area median income. We need to use Westchester County's AMI when we apply it to this ordinance, only because that's the recognized regional area median income, AMI, that HUD recognizes. So when it comes to grants, loans, federally facilitated programs, they look at the Westchester AMI. Now, with that said, because Yonkers AMI is lower than Westchester, and I know the Councilwoman's been advocating for this, we need to take a look at the lower end of Westchester AMI, because that's what directly affects the people of the city of Yonkers. And so that it all, I think, needs to be taken into account when we decide, okay, how do we build this ordinance? What levels of the area median income are we going to use? Who are we trying to help? So, for example, who are we trying to help? Most of the buildings that are being built right now in the city of Yonkers are studios, 1-bedrooms, and very few 2-bedrooms. And that's what these developers are targeting, these market rate developers. That doesn't do anything for a family of 4. We're going to squeeze people into a 1-bedroom. And so I've been advocating for ways that we can take a look at this ordinance and build some on-site and some off-site. So if we build some off-site, then maybe we can partner with people like West Hab, with Conifer, other affordable developers who have built in New York City or in the Bronx, to come here and figure out how we can create more workforce and affordable housing for families, where the market rate developers maybe aren't quite doing that.
John, let's allow Shanae Williams. She knows much more about this than I do. I'm just here to moderate. This is more a conversation, a roundtable among the two of you, with the purpose of educating the people of Yonkers of where does this stand. Shanae, did you hear what the councilman just said? You agree with all that?
So it's not about if I agree with it. I don't agree with everything that he said. But here's what I really want to point out. He said something that's very important. He said that the current market rate developers are looking to build a lot of 1-bedrooms, a lot of studios. That's the market that they're trying to tap into. And that's a part of the issue here for Yonkers, right? It's they're looking to build for a community that that's not reflective of Yonkers. Our community in Yonkers, the people in Yonkers, we want them to build apartments for families. We want them to build affordable apartments, right? So if we're going to, as a city, open up our arms and say, welcome, come and build, we need to make sure that we're telling them specifically what we want them to build, and so that they understand the community here in Yonkers. And if they're telling us that they're going to build to attract different people to come into the city, that's one thing. But if our message is, and what my message is, we want you to build for the people that's here, right? We want you to build for the community that's here so that everybody can get a piece of the pie and thrive, right? We want you to think about those residents that's currently here. And so if the IDA, if the city of Yonkers is going to invest alongside these developers by giving them tax breaks, those funds have to have some kind of impact long-term for the residents here. And that's just the bottom line. That's I think the key difference in how we look at things, right? And in how we advocate for things. When you say that, developers, have issue, the problem with these projects are the expenses as far as how expensive a building can get if you are using certain materials, whether it's wood versus steel, right? John is absolutely right about that. And that's another thing. It's like, we get it. If we want developers to build more apartments that's affordable, then they're going to want to build higher. That way they can see a higher return on their income, on their investment, right? And that makes sense. But to say that the IDA, it then becomes incumbent upon the IDA to create richer tax credits, what does that mean? What does that look like? The IDA has already given out a lot of, millions of dollars in tax benefits. So with the amount that we're currently giving out, what are we getting in return? How is it going to benefit the residents here? And that should be the lens that we're really looking at when we are talking about housing and building affordable housing, or just building market rate housing for the market in Yonkers.
No, Shanae, by what you both just said, it seems to me, I don't know if it seems to everybody else, that you two are in two different points in the spectrum. John is saying that they want to build one bedrooms for a one bedroom. You're saying that they should build for families in Yonkers. Maybe John knows something that you don't. Is the target bringing people from other areas, maybe New York City, to the riverfront, or is it to help the people of Yonkers? What do you think? What do you have to say, Rubbo?
Well, I think we should be, if the developers only want to target people from New York City, that's one thing. But then come with your money and be fully ready to build with your money without asking the city to fund your project. If it's not going to benefit the residents of Yonkers in any way, then that's the problem. But if they're saying that they want to come and they want to attract people from New York City with, who has the funds and the expensive jobs that they can afford these rentals, that's great. But it has to include Yonkers people. So there has to be some, and that's where the 20% ordinance comes in. That's where that little piece, of housing we can set aside for people from Yonkers with lower income. And that's how we make it work. That's how I look at it. And I think a lot of my constituents would agree.
John, do you know something that we don't? Is the target the people that come from New York City, or this is something for the people of Yonkers? Because if it's for the people of Yonkers, we cannot afford it. We are moving out of Yonkers. What is the target?
Well, I think every developer that's come to build in Yonkers has targeted New York City residents. I don't think that's any secret. I've been down to New York City plenty of times over the last decade, and if you walk through Grand Central Station, you see advertisements for Hudson Park. This was before RXR was built. This is before AMS came to town. Hudson Park built those buildings on the waterfront, and I think they mostly targeted people from New York City. They targeted all the train lines. They put advertising up. What we're seeing being built and being proposed are mostly one bedrooms and studios. It's not some secret that I was told. It's just what is being built. I would like personally, I would like us to see more people come and build either co-ops or condos or some form of home ownership, affordable home ownership. And that's something that I've been asking to see if there's some way that we can find an avenue to put that into this ordinance. So right now we're seeing a lot of the development focused mostly in downtown Yonkers, right? We've seen RXR, which is on Main Street. We've seen, we're now going up Alexander Street. We're going along the waterfront. Most of the areas that are being developed right now, they didn't currently have residential buildings or homes on them. They were mostly vacant land, or Altman Lighting on Alexander Street was an industrial property, right? Now we're looking a little further south towards New York City, and Ginsburg Development is coming in, and they're proposing Ludlow, which is a little further down. I think if we can find a mechanism within this ordinance where we're building a percentage of the affordable units on site, and then in order to slow down and even prevent gentrification in some of these surrounding neighborhoods, we can get these developers to take some of this money and we can invest in these areas between the downtown and Ludlow, Buena Vista, Hawthorne, all of the surrounding area, and we can invest in these properties. Maybe some of them are 1, 2, 3 family properties that are abandoned, burnt down, whatever the case is. And if we invest in these communities and then provide these properties to people as an affordable home ownership opportunity, that I don't necessarily know how to quite build that mechanism into the ordinance, but that's something that I'm hoping that this group HRNA would be able to bring to the table and at least make a recommendation. I don't know if the Councilwoman agrees with that sort of.
I don't disagree that we need affordable home ownership. That's absolutely a necessity, and I completely agree with you that we can, we have to be looking at that as well simultaneously with this ordinance. I completely agree, and one thing here's what concerns me. It's not a bad idea to have developers give them the option to put funding into our, a specific budget, a specific, whatever you want to call it, a specific fund, so that we, the city, can take that money and invest it with developers who want to build 100% affordable housing, or even put it towards home ownership, affordable home ownership. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing about that, though, John, is that really raises a lot of concerns is we have to be very careful to make sure that we're not going to build a nice luxury house here on Main Street, apartment building on Main Street, and then, and we get, a few $1 million from the developers, and we say, okay, let's invest it into another building over here, and then put it 3 blocks away down the corner in a neighborhood that's less than, that's not an affluent neighborhood, right? Then that just causes division between the rich and the poor. And, and that's the main concern. Like, how do we prevent that from happening? And that's why it's so important to have housing that is inclusive and that's mixed income housing, or housing that has a specific set aside for people with less income within those buildings. And that's what that affordable housing, that 20% will do. But I want to also, before I say anything more, I want to go back to a point, the statement that Hector Santiago mentioned earlier that I didn't really get to comment on. He did say, these rentals were either people were too poor or too rich, right? And that's absolutely true. I completely agree with Hector on that. That is why it is so important for us to address the housing problem that we see. That is what we're trying to do here. I can tell you, before I became a council person and before I worked in the private sector and was making more money, I worked in the mayor's office, and I was making, how much was I making at the time? I was making maybe like 40-something thousand. And it was, I'm a single person. I applied for, at the time, this was in 49 North Broadway, had just opened up and they were taking applications. I applied and I was rejected because I made $500 too much a month. $500, right? So, and obviously that to me was insane, because it's just like I wasn't making a lot of money. I couldn't afford the market rate rents, but I couldn't qualify for the affordable apartments within 49 North Broadway. And that to me was just bizarre. And that's why when I look at this ordinance and I look at the area median income specifically, I want to make sure that we widen that barrier and not leave any gaps between the rich and the poor, or the higher affordable folks numbers and the lower affordable numbers, right? Incomes. And that's what this ordinance addresses, in making sure that, you know, we're not just looking at the 60% AMI or the 80% or the 100%, which is like, you know, based on Westchester County, it's quite expensive for regular Yonkers people, right? So we extended that to the 40% and the 30%, because after, when you get to 30% and lower, that becomes low income housing. And then that's where folks can apply to like MHA to try to get housing, or to even like a West Hab, for example. So that's covered when you get from 30% and lower. But when you have that gap between people who are between, you know, let's say 31% and, you know, 40, 50%, that's that low income working families, people that I'm really concerned about, and want to make sure that we are doing something to address this problem so that they're not being pushed out or just like left out, period.
Now, John, this is a question for you that comes from Carolyn Elizabeth Marie. I'm sure you remember and you know who I'm talking about. She was involved in the issue on McLean Avenue. This is what she asks. Please ask the Councilman Rubbo if he will recuse himself from any votes having to do with his landlord from the brewery, as it is a conflict of interest.
So it's not a conflict of interest. We've actually had our attorneys take a look at the situation, and I even went to the ethics board and expect shortly to hear from the ethics board. But in consulting with our attorneys here in the city of Yonkers and those that represent us on the city council, they've made it very clear. And anytime that a vote comes before the council, for example, when we sold Chicken Island to AMS, I just very clearly acknowledged publicly and have done so, you know, multiple times, as you have for me, is just to let people know that I'm a tenant in that building. I've been a tenant in that building well before AMS owned it, and I may be a tenant in that building long after they own it. So legal counsel has advised that it's not a conflict.
Now, I have here a comment from Tom. I don't know if I'm saying it correct. Mayor Tom. How can we equalize access to affordable credit and improve access to down payment assistance to help families of color, low-income families, rural parts of Yonkers, buyers to purchase home? That question goes for Shanae.
Sure. You know, I think that's a good question, Tom. It's Tom Meyer. I know the name. That's a very good question. And I think that's a conversation, a wider conversation that we need to have, not just, you know, John and I here, but with our congressional leaders, because we have to think about, you know, the city of Yonkers heavily depend on our federal government to trickle down those funds so that we can utilize them in the best way to help people who want to become homeowners, to help Black and Brown families, you know, invest and actually be stakeholders. So that's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that, because I think that's something that we have to look into and really assess, but we can't do that without the help of our federal government.
Now, lots of people that have been around in Yonkers for a long time remember back in the 80s, and we remember the segregations of the 80s. Some people saying that it's happening all over again because of the perception, and often perception becomes reality. How do you see that, John?
I think we're a much different city than we were back then. Our schools are integrated. I think, and we're more on the end of 75% of our students are, you know, non-white, right, Shanae? And Shanae can confirm these numbers.
I think 59% are Hispanic and about 18% are Black in our public schools.
Right. So we're a much different city. When it comes to housing, I think if you take a look around, even, you know, take a look, I live off of McLean Avenue. You take a look off of McLean Avenue, Bronx River Road, all of the surrounding community there. We are a very mixed community, a very diverse community, and continue to grow as one. Downtown Yonkers, you know, Shanae can attest to as well. Very diverse community. To you know, just mention something about what Tom Meyer mentioned. There are programs, and there are programs available on the waterfront. There are programs that are available on the east side, and those programs are available to people who want to be homeowners, don't have a 20% down payment, but they can put down 2 and 3% on a piece of property. Now, you know, you have to be careful. You have to be prudent about that, because you also don't want to get yourself into a situation where we look back into 2008 and 9, when we saw the housing crash, where people were putting down 2 and 3% and they were drowning in debt. But there are federal programs out there that are available that you can get 2 or 3% down, put 2 or 3% down on a home if it's your primary property, and you could, you know, purchase a home. We've seen, you know, even some good friends, and I won't mention their names on this program, but they're a business owner in the downtown, and they purchased a home in the downtown on the waterfront with, I think, 3 or 5% down. So there are programs out there, but you know, what we can do too is we should be able to leverage the relationships that we have with local banks, and as the councilwoman said, with our local federal and congressional representatives.
Also, the county, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in and cut you off, Lou, but the county's website is very helpful. If folks are interested in home ownership, they should look at the county website.
Now, before we go further, allow me to tell the audience that this platform is a platform where we can come and connect with our elected officials and ask questions. Don't depend on me to ask all the questions that you are looking for answers. Engage, ask questions. I am the bridge that connects you and our elected officials, so please take advantage of it. Now, a question from Hector. Ask John, as the gatekeeper of his affordable housing debate, what qualifies him to understand the issues that directly affects our district? Now, let me just go back, John, a little bit. When you were elected and they gave you a very important chair, real estate and housing. It's very important. Back then, I believe you were a Republican, and Corazon Pineda Isaac, who was the majority leader for the Democratic, the Democratic Party held the majority. What were your qualifications then and now for you to hold this position? What makes you understand the needs of our people in our district?
Sure. So I was a Democrat when Corazon was elected the majority leader, but when I took on the role as chairman of real estate, I was from Corazon. I was a Democrat at the time, but I was elected originally, as you mentioned, as a Republican. What we fill many different roles on the council, and we all come from very diverse and different backgrounds. I know you've mentioned a few times that I'm disconnected from different parts of the community. I did not grow up rich, you know, even though I have a nice sweater on today, I did not grow up rich.
So you just became rich now?
No, I wish I were rich. I grew up in a household where my parents worked very hard. My father was sick with cancer twice while I was a young teenager. We almost lost our home. We had depended on some, great family and friends who helped us get through a difficult time in our lives. My grandfather came here like so many other immigrants and worked 13 hours a day, 14 hours a day in his own little restaurant in the Bronx, and would often tell me stories about how he would leave a birthday party of one of my father, my aunt, my uncle, and literally cry in the car because he wasn't there for his kids. So we all come from very different backgrounds, and that's what's great about Yonkers is we're very diverse. Arguments could be made that, well, if you represent the West Side, you don't understand the problems on the East Side. If you represent the East Side, you don't understand the problems on the West Side. I think when basic humanity comes into play, we understand that people in every community find themselves at times suffering, hungry, and in need. And we need to be there for our residents. We need to be there for every single resident in the city. So personally, I continue to learn. I learn more about people every single day. And I'm just a creature of I like to listen and get to understand. Will I always agree? No, maybe not. But I try to keep my mind open to what the needs are. Now, look, if you take a look at the folks that live on the East Side, you have senior citizens who have lived in their homes, and in some cases for 40 and 50 years. And they've lived on fixed incomes. Some of these seniors are not making more than $30,000 a year retired on Social Security, and they can barely make ends meet. Some of them own their homes. Some of them have taken reverse mortgages on their home, and they're getting pushed out of their homes. There are a lot of people in this city who come from different places of need. Yeah. And so that's part of what this ordinance can really, just one second. There's one, I think that's where this ordinance can help people. It can help people, it could help seniors who are downsizing, who are living on fixed incomes, who maybe fall into that 50% AMI category. It can help people who, if just take two people in a 4-person household, right? Let's say, parents and 2 kids. So that's a family of 4. If they make $50,000 a piece, $100,000 in that household, then they fall into 80% AMI for Westchester County. And
John,
most of the ordinance.
I have to ask you a big favor. In sake of time, because at 3:30 we have to do a hard stop because Councilwoman Shanae Williams has a prior commitment that starts at that time. Let's not go into too long of an answer. Let's go right to the point in order to get more questions to us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
What they say, they say politicians like to talk. John is proving that very true today.
And we know why. And we know why they like to talk.
No, and you know what? I can talk. This is a topic that I've come to learn. Over the summer, I met with a professor at Pace University. I was just telling Shanae yesterday, I met with a professor at Pace University, a law professor who focuses on affordable housing. I met with the CEO of West Ham, and I've tried to meet with people in the community to get a better sense of where, what the needs are, where we have so much need, right? We have need for affordable workforce.
Perhaps you need to talk with those guys walking on the streets. Now, let me ask you this. I remember when you became the chair, I spoke with Shanae on that day. And one of the things they were afraid of is that you would put things in committee for a very long time and don't release it. And it seems like that's the case. And lots of people are saying, what is the reason? Is this done by design? There is a purpose to hold things in committee for too long? What's going on? All of you, we have a majority in the council. We have the majority. They all, Corazon has voted for the 20%. Mike Cater has voted. Shanae has voted in favor. Tasha has voted in favor. What is the holdup?
Well, let me go first. We haven't voted yet.
No? Okay.
we've publicly stated that we support the 20%. And the reason why is because, Ru, I believe that we were elected by the body of the community, the people. I was elected by the people of the first district to do what is in their best interest, to fight for the issues that matter to them most. And one of those issues is affordable housing. Making sure that they get 20% specifically is something that my community has been asking for years. It's something that they deserve to have. So I'm here to represent them and speak on behalf of them. And that's, that's the bottom line for me. So when I was actually one of those persons who warned everyone against this strategy, that, this delay tactic. Like, I was very concerned, Councilman Rubbo, as you know, when you became real estate chair, because I didn't feel that you understood the community that I understand, the community that I represent, right? And because of that, because you don't understand the urgency and the need, or in my opinion, that the urgency and the need to get this done right away for the people, that was frustrating for me. And it still is frustrating because, like Ru said, this should have been done. We have now 5 Democrats on the council. We should have been voted on it, whether you support the 20% or not, we should have voted on something by now, and hopefully get that ordinance passed. But it hasn't been. And, we've had 2-3 years now to really think about this. And we're just getting to the point where we're doing another study. And that's very disappointing for a lot of us and frustrating. But I don't know what the reason is why I can't say that I don't know what the reason is. The reason why we haven't brought it to a vote, why it's not out of real estate committee, is because members of the council still feel like they need more information. And while I'm convinced that 20% works. I'm convinced that, the developers will get a return on their income, because if they really weren't able to, I think they would have shown us numbers by now, which I haven't seen. I'm sorry about the lighting there, which I haven't seen. So I'm convinced that these numbers work. I mean, they work in New York City. They found a way there. Why can't we find a way to make it work here in Yonkers? Is beyond me, but I think that we're getting there. What's a couple more weeks of folks doing research?
So John, our last conversation, you told me that you emailed all the council people, correct me if I'm wrong, saying that you do not disagree with the 20%. You just want to know, how can we make that happen? Am I correct on my understanding?
Yeah, I over the last decade, we've built 6. Either built.
No. My question. You send an email to them saying that you agreed with the 20%, but you wanted to know how would that work? Did they ever reply?
So in November, I sent an email out to all the council members, and I listed about 15 or 16 items that I thought were important, that I wanted to see somehow incorporated into the ordinance. Those are the things that are important to me, as something that I think would benefit every person in the city of Yonkers, east, west, south, north. No, I did not hear from any of my colleagues on that.
I'm confused. I'm sorry. I thought what Ru was asking about was the email that you sent to us of how to get to 20%, where it would benefit the community, obviously, and also not hurt the developers. You did send an email highlighting those specific numbers of what the AMI would look like and things like that. Is that
that's
two different things here? Because I know when you sent that email, I was very interested in that email, and I looked at it, and I even responded to you saying that this was a good start.
Right. No, this was another email that I sent out on November 12th. And what it just simply did is what
were some of those things that you wanted to see in there?
So I was talking about like how we needed to focus more on Westchester AMI instead of, in terms of what we adopted, right? We could be at the lower end of Westchester AMI, but we needed to adopt Westchester AMI instead of Yonkers, because
that's probably why I didn't reply, because I don't support that.
I also I talked about how this would ultimately affect our school system, what the target population we were trying to because as the email before mine talked about how we're not really retaining people in the 30 years old and to 44 years of age population, and we were losing that as a city. And so that was part of what I was talking about. How can we look at focusing on maintaining that? I talked about how does the ordinance that we're trying to pass, how does it jive with the New York State Consolidated Housing Plan? I talked about, senior housing, how to incorporate senior opportunities, housing for people with disabilities. Those were some of the things that, I listed in that email. All things that, I think that ultimately this group HR&A can make some recommendations for. Now, you asked a question earlier, Ben. If there are 4 votes on the council to pass 20%, it could be passed. It could come out of committee and it could be voted on. I'm not particularly holding it up. I want to see us continue to talk about it, but even as committee chair, I can't, force it in. 3 members of the committee can vote on it out and we can put it on the floor. But I think we've all worked really hard to get to a place now where we're so close. The administration has hired a firm, or the city has hired a firm that can help us organize all of these ideas and thoughts, and we can pass something before the summer that I think will be beneficial to the entire
John,
community.
This is what the people in Yonkers are saying. We don't need no more studies. We've done studies. We know exactly what needs to be done. We need housing, okay? Now, do you vote in favor? I understand the majority vote, so it goes, but where do you stand? Do you vote in favor of the 20%? And this is a question that just came to me in a text, saying directly to you, John, are you stalling this because somebody's asking you?
No, not at all. I'm not stalling. We can pull it out. If there's votes to vote on it, let's pull it out. But I think that we've come so far. Look, here's one of the things that I said in my email in November. Over the last decade, we've either built or soon to build a total of 600 affordable housing units. 600 over a decade. I would like us to find a plan to build 2,000 over the next decade. So what I'm asking of this group that's coming in, not to do a study to tell us, do we need housing? They're coming in to tell us, how do we accomplish what we want to while not playing chicken with the market rate developers? And I would like to know, how do we find a pathway to build 2,000 new units? And last thing I'll say, because I know we only have a few minutes left, and then the rest of the time is Shanae's. White Plains, who I would say has been wildly successful in economic development, they just increased their affordable housing ordinance to 2 different numbers, 8% or 12%. Now, if a market rate developer like RXR, if they build 12%, then those units go to people in the 80 to 99% of area median income, right? So if you're making as a single person between 70,000 and 88,000, then 12% of affordable housing will be set aside. If the market rate developer is building at the 60%, so they're building for people who are making $52,000 a year, then they're building only 8%. So if they're building for people who are making less money, they're building fewer units. If they're building people who are making more money, they're building more units. And it's just a game of economics, because at the end of the day, we're trying to accomplish 2 things. We still want to attract people here to build, but more importantly, we need to build housing that people can afford, that Yonkers people can afford.
Okay, on that note, we're going to move to Shanae. Shanae, do you agree with everything that the councilman just said? Because people of Yonkers are enough with the tests, enough with the studies. Okay, I have spoken to you, and you also, I think, are saying more or less the same. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell us what
That's a trick question, Rube, because my wife wouldn't even agree with everything I just said.
There you go. I think he just answered that for me. But here's the thing. I stand with the community on this. I agree with the community that we don't need any more housing studies. I think we need to act. I think we need to bring the ordinance to a vote. But I also, the one thing I want to say before I continue is that something that he mentioned that is important. I agree with a lot of things that he did say. Like, I do want to see, I think everybody wants to see affordable housing for our seniors in particular, and for like veterans and people really in vulnerable communities and populations. We want that, but let's not forget that seniors have much easier access to affordable housing than someone who's not a senior, someone who's, just, a working mom, or, struggling regular, not, just like somebody who's not a senior citizen, right? Whether it's a young person or just like somebody like you, Rue. Are you a senior citizen? I don't think so. You're young.
Do I look like
You're young, Rue. You're young.
45.
42.
There you go. Somebody in their 40s or 50s. We want, the ordinance is really, in my eyes, there to protect everybody else that doesn't have a specific, set aside for them already. The seniors have that set aside. We're currently building or looking into building housing specifically for seniors in my district with the Conifer project, right? There's other senior projects that, that senior housing that's available that they can tap into. It's not enough, but it does exist. What this ordinance is really looking to do is to address that gap of people who are, young people fresh out of college that just don't have that high income, people who are, immigrants, people who are just poor people, hardworking people who just don't have the means to pay for the high rents that we're seeing. I do agree that I agree with John, with Councilman Rubbo, that with 3 votes of the real estate members in the real estate committee, we can move it out. And the problem with that, though, Rue, is that we don't have the 3 votes because from what I've seen, we don't have the 3 votes because if we did, the majority leader would vote for it, I would vote for it, John Rubbo would vote for it, and Mike Cater would vote for it. And at this point, I don't think we have those 4 votes, right? I would vote for it. I don't know who else would vote for it. You'd have to ask them. The problem is we don't have those 3 votes to move it out of committee. And it's the way that the committees are set up. The members on the committee, the Republicans on the committee are not going to want to move this out without that extra push from the leader who they made leader of this council, right? And so that has to happen in order to move it out. I am confident that we're going to get this some ordinance passed this year before the summer, before June. Hopefully we'll get it done in the next few weeks. But we'll have to continue to have these conversations. As much as I don't want to have any more conversation, it's not just up to me. It has to be across the board. And right now we're just not there.
Action, not words. That's an hashtag that I often use. But for what I see, there is a commitment of voting for the 20%. Corazon, Mike, Shanae, Tasha, and John Rubbo. So we have a majority.
No, not everyone, not all the council members sit on the real estate committee. I don't know who all the members are. I'm a member and John's a member. I don't know who else is on there.
Corazon, yourself, me, you, the council president, the majority leader, and the minority leader.
So then we have the majority.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will send a message to Mike Cater and Corazon Pineda Isaac right after this Zoom to ask them if we can, what their thoughts are on moving it out. John, you've made it, I think you said that you would like to keep it in committee until after the study is done, so you can be, to see how we can make that work. And that's fair. That's fair. That's totally,
Shanae,
that's your opinion. That's what you want. That's what you need in order to get that done. I'm just saying, I stand with the community on this, and I just don't think that we need to necessarily wait to vote for 20%.
Well, guys, thank you both. I know that we had 60 minutes dedicated for this. The information was great. I thank you both. I know that you are both running, John, you're running for re-election. Shanae Williams is running for the county clerk. So I'm going to give you just until the end. We have a minute or two to tell the people about your re-election, about what you're running for, Shanae, and hopefully you will be re-elected and you will be elected, Shanae. So Shanae, you start.
Sure, because I'm going to have to jump off. So
Okay,
thank you for putting this together. It's really healthy to have these discussions and really keep the community engaged and let them know where we are. I am running for Westchester County Clerk. It is something that I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited about. I think that Westchester County can really use another voice of leadership, a new voice of leadership. I think that the county clerk's office is a very important office, one that is really underutilized. I think that a lot of people need to know about the different resources that the clerk office offers and, you know, understand the laws, understand how to access information. And that's what I'm trying to do by becoming the next county clerk. I want to make sure that it's more accessible, that it's more equitable, and that it's more inclusive as a whole, and make sure that everybody throughout Westchester County understand who and what the clerk office does and what they offer, so that they can benefit from it. But thank you so much for allowing me to say that. And I would like to invite everybody to go and check out my website, shanaeforclerk.com. That's SHANAE for clerk, CLERK.com.
Well,
so
Shanae,
thank you.
We have an interview coming up on your candidacy for the, county clerk. So we will go further on that day. So thank you for stopping by, and we wish you the best. John, please do the closing for us.
Sure, you got it. And yeah, I think Shanae has so much energy. I think she's going to make a great county clerk. I know she's out there working very hard, and she has some really great, bright, and new ideas that I think will benefit the county of Westchester.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, you got it. And I appreciate the opportunity, Ben, because like I said before, I could talk about this all day, and it's an important topic. It's important to the residents of Yonkers, every resident of Yonkers, because it definitely sets a direction for the people in the city. I am running for re-election. I don't know yet if I'll have a primary. I'm hoping I don't. If I don't, then the election, will be in November. What I'm really just trying to focus on is I go around and ask people to support me again, are just the things that I've tried to do in my district. Not only my district though, but around the city. I mean, 2 years ago, we invested a record amount of money into the school system, $12 million in 1 year by Shanae. That one investment is more than we've ever put into the school system. And that's on a recurring basis now. That $12 million additional monies go in every single year going forward. We've made record investment in capital improvements to our schools. We continue to make those investments. We're doing a lot of work in the 4th Council District. I've been an advocate for full gaming at the casino. I think that's something that will drive jobs for the people across our city and the region. We've seen so much great activity at the Cross County Shopping Center, which is again driving jobs. We're making infrastructure investments all around the city, whether it's paving roads, planting new trees, redoing our business corridors and streetscapes. So we're making a significant investment around my district, and I hope to continue to do that. And then, every single day we have people who call in with sometimes the smallest issue to something that is really impacting their life. And it's rewarding to be able to help people. And I genuinely enjoy helping the people in Yonkers. We live in a great city. I think we have so much more to accomplish, and I hope to be here to continue to work for the people in Yonkers.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for your service. Guys, we're going to have an exciting next week. James Nolan will be on Yonkers Voice on the 9th at 11 a.m. On the 10th, Assemblyman Nader Sayegh at 11 a.m. And on Thursday, the 11th, Ruth Walter will be on Yonkers Voice at 11 a.m. So hopefully all of you will join us. You will ask questions, you will participate, and don't forget our rules. It's okay to disagree, but disagree with respect and politely. Thank you for watching, and until next time. Thank you, John. I
Have a good
appreciate
one.
you stopping by. Bye-bye.
Anytime. Thanks.